So last night I saw The Bone Temple, and I got opinions. We're going to get to that a bit later on. Hi, my name's Tez. This is the Ministry of Horror podcast, as per every week, pretty much. So far, 2026, we've been managing to do it every week. So let's not jinx it. This is your weekly horror port of call for all your horror news, reviews, sometimes special features. There's no special features today, but we have got 3 films to review a bit later on. And prior to that, we got some horror news. But those films, I was able to get an advanced screener for Grizzly Night, which we're going to talk about a bit later on. Bear attack horror film based on a true story. I know, wild. Also, Coyotes. So we've almost got a bit of an animal attack theme, but Coyotes is the new Justin Long, Kate Bosworth horror that is landed on rental. I rented it on Prime. Did I rent it or did I buy it? It was only a fiver anyway, so I think I might have bought it for a fiver, which is pretty good. And then 28 years later, The Bone Temple, the continuation of 28 years later. Hear my thoughts on that a bit later on. In terms of myself, nothing new. Nothing new really to report. We haven't done that much gaming. I've been dipping into Battlefield 6 recently. I've been kind of getting into a bit of Battlefield 6 on PS5, and that's fun. I am terrible at it. I'm really bad at that game, but it is quite fun when I can get the odd kill in. I think my kill-death ratio is pretty appalling on the handful of games that I've done so far. Also, I'm wearing one of my Art the Clown shirts that I got from America, and I don't think it felt this tight. I don't think it felt this tight in America. But it's Art the Clown presenting sweets from the skull of a victim. It's a wild t-shirt. But yeah, it's feeling cozy. So after recording, I'm going to get changed out of this because I like my clothes baggy. Gaming-wise, yeah, it's been Battlefield. Other than that, I haven't really done any fresh horror gaming recently. And still working. I mean, it looks like I've added films to the pile behind me. The Ministry of Horror physical media set. But no, actually, where I thought I'd cleared out all of the cupboards downstairs, there was one area which I clearly hadn't. And I've got a bag full of films that I'm going to have to decide, do I keep and they just sort of stack on top of the case behind me? Or do I sell? Do they need to be part of the collection? Or the sort of film that I can just watch when they're on streaming? Do I need to own it physically? It's tough. I mean, there's plenty of films that aren't collector's editions, that are just standard editions of films that I enjoy. So, do I really need to get rid of it? Probably not. But also, does my collection behind me, should it really be more so particularly poignant films to me, along with collector's editions, special editions, limited editions? It's it's a problem being a collector, because sometimes you just want to get everything, other times you look at your bank balance and think, what was I thinking? We're going to jump into the horror news, bloodydisgusting.com, as per usual. Charlotte Hope, Jessica McNamee, Zach Gilford, and more to star in Francis Galuppi's Evil Dead film, Alex DiVincenzo writes. Charlotte Hope, Jessica McNamee, I've already read all those people's names, and Australian newcomer Ella Oliphant will star in the next Evil Dead film, Deadline reports. Not to be confused with Evil Dead Burn, the as yet untitled 7th Evil Dead film is being written and directed by Francis Galuppi, who did The Last Stop in Yuma County. Plot details being kept under wraps. Evil Dead creator Sam Raimi and franchise producer Rob Tapert are producing. Evil Dead icon Bruce Campbell and Evil Dead Rise filmmaker Lee Cronin will executive produce alongside Rommel Adam and Yosei Canas. New Line Cinema will distribute domestically through Warner Brothers Pictures, with Sony distributing internationally, Studio Canal distributing in the UK, and Metropolitan Film Export distributing in France. From director Sebastian Vanicek, who did Infested, Evil Dead Burn will possess theatres on July 24th. Okay, so we got a little while to wait for Evil Dead Burn, but I haven't seen The Last Stop in Yuma County, so I can't comment on Francis Galuppi, but I mean, Evil Dead doesn't really miss. It's not a franchise where, there are entries that I prefer. There are ones that I think, well, that's good. This one's slightly better. There's, we've got the old school style, the original Sam Raimi trilogy, which, you know, changes from kind of out and out low budget gory horror to the more sort of comedic elements being introduced, and then full on sort of dark comedy in the third entry, through then to more out and out horror with the Evil Dead 2013 and then Evil Dead Rise. So I have a feeling that Evil Dead Burn is going to be continuing in that vein. So, and I like that. I'm fine with that. But the fact we're also getting another Evil Dead film, I mean, yeah, I don't have any concerns yet. They haven't had an entry that makes me think, oh god, they are really just trying to get every dredge of sauce out of this. So yeah, I'm interested to see where it goes. Dolly knows best on attention-grabbing new poster ahead of March release. Megan Navarro writes, "Mommy knows best, a phrase that's terrifying instead of cozy when it comes to the upcoming horror movie Dolly." Shot on Super 16mm film, the twisted folk horror tale arrives in theatres March 6th, and we're exclusively debuting the new poster below. In Dolly, a young woman, Macy, fights for survival after being abducted by a deranged, monster-like figure who wants to raise Macy as their child. A daring blend of new French extremity and 1970s American horror. Rod Blackhurst, who did Night Swim, directs from a script he co-wrote with Brandon Weevil based on their 2022 short Baby Girl. Fabian Therese, Sean William Scott, Ethan Suplee, and pro wrestler Max the Impaler star. Max the Impaler. I don't know who that is. I recognise the name, but I can't picture who that is. The horror film draws from the Texas Chainsaw Massacre and New French Extremity. Trace Thurman wrote in his review for Fantastic Fest, where Dolly falls short in the script or originality departments, it more than makes up for it in the technical department, especially in the sound design and the practical gore effects. Every fleshy squelch and bone crack is not only heard, but felt, making the violence hit when it needs to. I mean, the artwork, or the poster art, ugh. I mean, it could well be one of those kind of grimy, low budget horrors that, you don't have to have a big budget for it to be a good horror, but I guess when I say that, I mean the grimy, low budget where it's just over the top violence, disgusting gore, and mean spirited for the sake of it, with no one either in a situation where we've got no one we can root for, or where people are just continuously being tortured in horrible scenarios, and you just sort of want it to end. I'm assuming a lot there based on the poster, but it has mentioned New Wave French Extremity, which that can be pretty mean-spirited, and 70s American horror, which can be mean-spirited, but there's probably more so Texas Chainsaw. So yeah, the artwork is creepy as anything. It's got like what looks to be like an oversized toddler who's got like a porcelain mask, like a doll's mask. Obviously the name is Dolly, and one of the eyes is all cracked out, but the other one you can see the human eye underneath, like glaring into the viewer. Yeah, I'll watch it if it's free. Sinners earns record-breaking 16 Oscar nominations. Frankenstein, Weapons, Begonia among hopefuls. Alex DiVincenzo writes, nominees for the 2026 Academy Awards have been announced, and Sinners leads the pack with a record-breaking 16 nods. It's up for Best Director, Best Picture, Best Director, Actor, Supporting Actress, Supporting Actor, Original Screenplay, Costume Design, Achievement in Casting, Makeup and Hairstyling, Original Score. I think it's, I obviously haven't seen every film that got released in 2025, but I would say the score is standout in that film. Cinematography, editing, production design, sound, visual effects, and original song. I don't know if that's an original song, but other genre films contending for Oscars include Frankenstein, which is very good with 9 nominations, alongside Weapons, Begonia, K-pop Demon Hunters, Jurassic World Rebirth, and The Ugly Stepsister. Wow, okay. So where did The Ugly Stepsister get voted? Let's just have a little look. Best Picture, Begonia and Frankenstein. Sinners. Best Director, Ryan Coogler. Sinners. They've done a good job here and highlighted just the horror related ones. I didn't know Begonia was a horror. I've not seen it. I've not really seen any of that director's films, where he always seems to work with Emma Stone and Jesse Plemons. Actor in a leading role, Michael B. Jordan, of course. Original screenplay, costume design, Frankenstein Sinners. Okay, makeup and hairstyling, The Ugly Stepsister. So that's pretty cool. The Ugly Stepsister has had a nomination. And visual effects, Jurassic World Rebirth and Sinners are in there as well. Wow. Okay, so it's a good year for horror in terms of nominations. Horror doesn't always, in recent memory, do that well at the Academy Awards, but yeah, cool. Always good to see horror getting recognised in the mainstream. Video game news. FMV horror adventure game The Run launches February 5th on Steam, Mike Wilson writes. After launching on iOS and Android devices last October, PRM Games has announced the FMV horror thriller The Run will launch on PC via Steam on February 5th. What excites me most about The Run is how it shows that interactive cinema is becoming its own powerful form of entertainment, says writer and director of The Run, Paul Rashid. We're no longer just borrowing from games or films, we're creating something new that sits between them. The Run is intense, emotional, terrifying, and deeply personal because the audience isn't passive. You're inside the story, making life or death decisions as it unfolds. I think players are ready for this new kind of experience, and I can't wait for PC audiences to step into it. Written and directed by Rashid, The Run is set in the trails of Lake Garda, northern Italy. Players step into the shoes of Xana Hendricks, a world-famous fitness influencer, celebrating another career milestone. However, things take a turn when Xana is attacked by a group of masked assailants who relentlessly hunt her across the landscape. As a result, the player must consistently make decisions that determine Xana's survival. The cast of The Run is led by Roxanne McKee, Game of Thrones. I recognise that name. I couldn't say who they are from Game of Thrones. Let's just do a little Google. Oh yeah, didn't she used to be on Hollyoaks or something? She's in Game of Thrones, but I think literally like an episode or two of season 1, which is still good. And George Blagden, Vikings, with appearances that include Italian screen legend Franco Nero and the horror maestro himself, Dario Argento. With more than 3.5 hours of film content, multiple branching storylines, 20 unique deaths, and 5 distinct endings, no 2 playthroughs are ever the same. Yeah, I'm a video gamer, but I also like the more so passive approach at times. I like my narrative focused gaming. At the moment, I think the game that I'm playing, probably more so in line with Assassin's Creed, which I still dip into, is Dispatch. I picked up Dispatch a little while ago on PlayStation. There's not a lot you need to do. It's a couple of quick time actions. A little bit of like hacking, but that's more just like memorizing, left, right, up, down, that sort of thing, controller inputs, and yeah, dialogue options really. But it's decent. It's like kind of an interactive cartoon, mature cartoon, about superheroes. And I do always play the Dark Pictures anthology games, and also The Quarry and Until Dawn. I don't think this is going to be like those. I mean, it's FMV focused, but I did grow up on some FMV games. I mean, I always remember I think it was the original, the X-Files game that came out on PC. And I'm always in the habit of overwriting my save. Whenever I do a save, overwrite the last save, and that's just my one save. In my head, it takes up less space if I'm only using one save. I'd gotten to a point in that game where I think I was right near the end. I was in a corridor, and with it being it's a FMV game, but it's a point and click game. You move through the area, you click to go ahead and pick up objects, that sort of thing. I got to a point when all I could do was move forward. And as soon as I stepped forward, an infected Mulder was there to shoot me and kill me. I think it's because I needed to do certain things or a certain thing or pick up a certain item prior to getting into that location to then avoid that happening. But I hadn't done that. And because of where I'd saved, literally at that point, I couldn't turn back to go and collect whatever it is I needed to. So I'd screwed myself inadvertently. And I thought, I'm not going to restart playing this game because it's taken bloody ages because it is quite difficult. So that's the long and short of it. I do like a good FMV type game and, multiple choice Well, I don't really like multiple choice. I had a multiple choice exam recently and I hated it. So I'll be keeping an eye out for the run. There's a trailer. Let's just put it on mute. I mean, it does look like you'd essentially be watching like a sort of medium to low budget horror film. Yeah, fine. I mean, I guess like Wales Interactive, those sorts of things. But I mean, it looks decent. Yeah, let's go. Let's keep an eye out for that. And Dario Argento is involved, just as an appearance, but still, it's cool. Horror royalty. And finally, well, not finally in the news, but finally in the video game news, Halloween the video game reveals the first playable civilians. Mike Wilson writes, Ilphonic and Gun Interactive have revealed 5 of its Heroes of Haddonfield for players to battle against Michael Myers in Halloween the video game. While details on what specific abilities for civilians are still to be revealed, there's no shortage of personality for each of the 5 that have been revealed. The civilians of Haddonfield are one of the many elements Halloween will leverage to create an immersive horror sandbox, reads the message from the developers. I don't care. We're excited to begin offering players glimpses into the unique personalities and traits of our brand new cast of heroes in Halloween, and look forward to sharing more about their involvement in the single player and multiplayer components of the game. As detailed in previous updates, as a civilian, you'll be scavenging for supplies, guiding residents to safety, and locating a phone to call the police before the time runs out. As Myers, you'll be prowling the shadows and making use of his special abilities, like Shape Jump, to traverse through the neighborhood unseen and strike without warning. I want to be proved wrong. I want to be proven wrong that this is going to be a good, fun game. And I know people love Friday the 13th, but I'm not into asymmetrical multiplayer games. And I know that it's been made that there is a story mode in this game. But that I can't help but feel that's going to be the same as the story mode in Evil Dead, which wasn't a story mode, it was a single player mode. And what it was basically, instead of other players, you had bots. You had certain scenarios. Go from here to this point, you'll get attacked on the way. Get to this point, there'll be a certain person you've got to fight, and blah, blah, blah. And once you die, you die. I think the fact that all of these characters just kind of look like generic NPCs. They don't look like they're particular characters from the series, or at least the first film, because I guess this is set on Halloween night 1978. 78 or 76? 78, I want to say. On the original Halloween night, just so I don't have people coming at me. I just can't help feeling that it's such an annoyance, because Halloween is and will always be my favourite horror franchise. It really will. As much as I dislike some 2 films in the entire series, it really is my favourite franchise. And I see this and I see these updates and I think, there's nothing here that is making me think, okay, this could be my sort of game. And also the fact that there's this shape jump for Myers. I mean, one of the things, especially in like the first few films, was okay, Michael walks slowly, but you can see the path that he's going on. And even some of the later films, you can see the route he has taken. He's walking slowly, he's going where he needs to, and he will crop up in different places, but it's not outlandish how he's gotten there because of the geography of the area and the route he is taking. It's not like with Jason in some of the Friday films where he just pops up in random spots, kills people, pops up somewhere else, is inexplicably in different areas. And you could say, well, that's just a horror thing because of, Freddy. But Freddy, he kills in the dream world, and in the dream world he can do whatever the flip he wants. With Michael, for the most part, I mean, he might have elements of that in, I don't know, some of the middle sequels, potentially, But even still, like, off the top of my head, it feels like he doesn't necessarily just pop up. And I get it's a video game, and if he's just doing his standard walk, then if the other characters can run, then in theory there's no way he'd be able to catch up with people. If everyone spots him, then they could just keep running in a different direction and keep getting away from him. So I guess, yeah, from a video game mechanic standpoint, you would need that ability to be able to just transport yourself to a further ahead location. But was that mechanic not also in the Friday the 13th game? Is this basically not the Friday the 13th game with a Halloween skin? And fans of the Friday the 13th game will probably be happy with that, because I know it was a popular game. I know people were pissed off when the servers got shut down. But for me, no. I mean, I'm still very much seeing things for this, feeling one sort of way, seeing footage for the Hellraiser game and thinking, that's what I would love a Halloween game to be. Like, I like Hellraiser. Hellraiser's cool. The game looks like it's going to be awesome. Like, so far, all the early footage just looks like it ticks the boxes from what a horror single player game should be, especially a first person immersive horror video game. Hopefully, it doesn't shit the bed and, comes out and is disappointing. But I see footage from that and I just think, oh, imagine if they could transpose that to more of a stealthy, suspenseful, tension-filled game of a Halloween-type game. Imagine a Halloween like Outlast. I mean, I'm terrible at Outlast games because you've got no weapons and you can't really defend yourself. But that's the sort of thing that could transpose, because in the Halloween films, you're often not really able to defend yourself, at least for the most part. So, yeah. I'll be interested to see what the reviews are like when it comes out. If discussion on the single player mode is that it's a really good story or it's really engaging with some great moments, then sure, I will go ahead and I'll give it a go. But at the moment, I have no interest of dropping any coin on this on its current form, personally. Right, finally in the horror news, off my soapbox now. Welcome to Derry Season 2 is in the works. Alex DiVincenzo writes, while HBO has yet to renew It, Welcome to Derry, a second season is already in development. THR notes that co-creator Andy Muschietti now finds himself a hot commodity thanks to the muscular success of Welcome to Derry, HBO's It series. A second season is now in the works, even if it has not been officially renewed. The news comes as little surprise given the success of the first season, which had HBO Max's third most watched debut in the platform's history. Serving as a prequel to Muschietti's It films, based on Stephen King's classic novel, the first season of It, Welcome to Derry, went back to 1962 to trace the origins of the evil, shape-shifting entity known as Pennywise the Clown. The second season is expected to take place in 1935, with the proposed third season to be set in 1908. Yeah, I enjoyed It, Welcome to Derry. I think that's what I wanted from a weekly horror TV series. I found it overall more entertaining than Alien Earth. I think Alien Earth just it had some promise. It started quite well. The flashback episode was decent, but I think part of its job was to make aliens scary again, and it started. It started okay before then focusing again, falling into the Ridley Scott prequel trap of let's just focus in on the AI. Let's just focus in on the androids, the cyborgs. I don't care, or I don't care enough to be invested. With It, yeah, okay, you can take out all the different law changes and the different thing, the military interest, because sometimes you involve the military as the evil military, and it all gets a bit like copy paste repeat. But I overall it didn't affect my enjoyment. I thought it was decent. It was uber gory in places. Performances were all pretty good, and of course, Bill Skarsgård did excellent as Pennywise. He was uber violent, smashing his fingers through people's eyes, ripping their heads off, slicing off tops of heads, and eating faces. They really leaned into the fact that on HBO you can kind of get away with anything. So yeah, I'm interested to see what they do with the next season. I think the season 2, 1935, would that be the Bradley Gang? And 1908 would be the Kitchener Ironworks, I think. Or I might have got the Kitchener Ironworks might be 35 and something different in 1908. Not sure. I mean, they're some of the big prior moments, but yeah, I'm interested to see what they do. Anyway, that is the horror news. Let's jump in to some reviews, why don't we? So we're going to jump on to reviewing Grizzly Night. Grizzly Night is a 2026 American survival thriller film directed by Burke Doran in his feature directorial debut. Screenplay was written by Katrina Mathewson and Tanner Bean, based on a story by them and Bo Bean. The film is a dramatization of the 1967 Night of the Grizzlies attacks in Glacier National Park. It stars Breck Bassinger, Jack Griffo, Charles Eston, and Oded Feur. So the film depicts the events of August 12th, 1967, when two separate fatal grizzly bear attacks occurred on the same night, miles apart, changing the national perception of wildlife conservation. So yeah, again, shout out to Strike Media. Very much appreciate the early screening of this. Very, very cool of you guys. So the film opens with two characters underneath the stars. They're in their sleeping bags. I mean, this is old school camping where you don't have to have a tent. You just get your sleeping bag and sleep under the stars. Something we don't really ever do in the UK because most of the time it pisses with rain at night or in the day or all the time. So the likelihood of that happening in the UK is pretty much non-existent unless I guess you've been at like a house party and you're all just like, yeah, let's go and sleep outside. You know, fair play, whatever. But here we've got this pretty cool opening shot where it's you're flicking between two shots of a male character and a female character who are both lying on their sides, and it's close up of their face looking at each other before you can hear the sounds of an approaching grizzly and you see it. The grizzly effects in this are quite good. I'm assuming it's a mixture of. Let's just have a look on production. Does it say what sort of if it was all CGI? Because if the bears are CGI, then they look great. If does it say the film was based on the true events? Yeah. Filming took place near Park, Utah, in 2023. Wow, okay, it's filmed a little while ago. Filming utilized practical locations to recreate the dense forestry and mountainous terrains of 1960s Montana. Blah 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 blah. I wonder if they did actually use real bears, and the reason for that is if it's CGI, the CGI is really good. If it isn't, I don't think they're like practical. I don't think they actually made practical effects for the bears. But if they did actually use real bears, that would make sense because you don't see actual attacks per se. You see the bears coming and grabbing certain people in their sleeping bags or dragging them away or whatnot. You hear the crunching sounds. But really, when it comes to the attack element, it's the aftermath, or it's the bears approaching and then snarling and, just creating that kind of moment of fear. A lot of the film is around the searching for people who have been attacked and trying to recover them and save them if possible. It's not really so much about like uber gory bear attacks. So initially, early on in the film, it does have this kind of feel and tone of a little bit of like a made-for-TV type film, I would say, just to be fair. But the performances in it are quite nice. Julie Helsinger, Joan Devereaux. Yeah, so Lauren Call is Joan Devereaux. It's kind of our ranger that's in charge of this location, and Breck Bassinger as Julie is one of the girls who decides to go camping and is ultimately attacked early on into the film. And during this night, these two separate instances are happening, separate bears. Is this caused by the humans? Potentially, because earlier on there's this on this trail, this national park trail, there's like kind of a hotel lodge type place. And one of the things that they do is put out food bags, put out the waste from the day's, dinner service outside for the bears to come and eat. And then those that are staying at the hotel can, from a safe distance, watch the bears as it's a way to entice the bears to come to the hotel. So, there's discussion of, well, why are we bringing in all these townies, all these, like New Yorkers or whatever? It's disrespectful to the park, disrespectful to the wildlife in the countryside. And so there is that kind of question of, are we underestimating the potential for a tragic disaster by looking for entertainment in our natural habitats, our natural. Sure, I just had a rustling sound, which would be strange because it's just the dogs downstairs. Natural habitats. Yeah, the acting of the leads is good. The acting of some of the some of the side characters, not so much. I can't remember if it's probably one of the, is it not Josh Zuckerman, Matt Lintz? No, it's hard to see on I'll go into the IMDb just so I can kind of get a gist of the which actors were playing which characters, because most of the cast were quite good. Some were a little wooden, like Jack Griffo as Raymond. I think he might have been one of the ones that was not great, to be honest. But then in contrast, Breck Bassinger is very good. Oded Fear as Dr. John Lindbergh. He does his role quite well, where he has to stay calm under a situation where he's basically on holiday with his family, and then all of a sudden there's multiple bear attacks that he's got to try and deal with until they can get them to the hospital. But this is the 60s. This is in the middle of a huge national park. It's not like you can just pop down the highway and get to the hospital in half an hour. It's just this. You've got to do what you can to try and stabilize. Yeah, overall it's enjoyable, and the fact is that it's based on a true story. Is just like you don't often hear about. I mean, when you think about bear attacks, you will more often than not from pop culture think of Grizzly Man. The documentary series or documentary film, I should say, by Werner Herzog of the guy and his girlfriend. I don't know their names, who loved bears, would always hang about with bears, and one night, unfortunately, were mauled by bears. But does happen. 6 out of 10. I think it is decent, but it's not that heavy on the horror. And the attacks, you don't necessarily see the attacks. But I wonder, the fact is it being based on the true story, I wonder if that was a particular choice because of not wanting to be disrespectful to those that were attacked. Because I guess, if you're portraying true events, you don't really want to be overtly gratuitous because it's in poor taste to the families of those who lost their lives. 6 out of 10, I think, for Grizzly Night. Decent, worth a watch. Next, Coyotes. Now, funnily enough, coyotes are one of those animals that I've heard of, but we don't have them in the UK. I knew they were a dog type animal, but I've never actually seen a coyote until watching this. They're basically like smaller wolves, I would say. Yeah. Coyotes. It's a 2025 American comedy horror thriller film directed and edited by Colin Minihan, starring Justin Long, Kate Bosworth, Mila Harris, Catherine McNamara. Who's Catherine McNamara in this? Oh. Brittany Allen, Keir O'Donnell, and Norbert Leo Butts. It had its world premiere at Fantastic Fest on September 20th before a theatrical release on October 3rd. It's about a family who must fight for their lives while trapped in their Hollywood Hills home as a pack of coyotes targets them. So, Justin Long plays Scott, who is this artist, and he's got his young family with his wife Liv and their daughter Chloe. And they've got this really nice house up in the Hollywood Hills. Like, really, like when you think Hollywood Hills home, this is the sort of place. Really, 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 really nice. But to have a house like that, it has come with sacrifice. And that being that Scott hasn't been really there for his daughter, for his wife. He's been so involved in his work and making sure his work is just right, and to keep up with having this kind of home. Their next door neighbour is Trip, who don't really know what his job's meant to be, but he looks like he enjoys a lot of drugs, and he enjoys a lot of women that will have payment for services, to put it lightly. And Keir O'Donnell also plays an exterminator character who he very much reminded me of one of the O'Doyle brothers. I think it's the O'Doyle brothers in It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. Had that kind of vibe to him. So they're up in the Hollywood Hills. There appears to be some sort of storm which has knocked out the electricity. There's been an earthquake or a storm, something like that. But at the same time, people nearby their neighbours are being attacked by really, really vicious coyotes, like the sort of coyotes that jump, tear your neck out, rip out your Achilles, rip out chunks of like your arm and stuff like that. Uber violent. And it appears as though they're working their way towards Scott's house. And we don't really know exactly why, what their beef is. And that then leads us into a situation where they're essentially trapped. The family are trapped up on the hills, and there is no cell service. I think that's because of the electricity going out. There doesn't seem to be a way to get out of there, and the dogs are closing in. They've also got their own pet dog, who I think I was the most nervous of something happening to their pet dog. I think the dog's called Ted or something like that. It's one of those comedy horror films that is on the better end of the spectrum. It's not a Shaun of the Dead where you're going to be laughing out loud. It's helped that Justin Long is just, you just got to like Justin Long when he's in a film. He's just one of those really likable actors. But it has this almost, what could I say about the tone? Like the character introductions, when you introduce the various characters, you then get like a character card where they'll be talking, then it all of a sudden freeze frame and it'll go into this animation style, which I guess plays into the fact of Scott being an animator or an artist, and does that for most of the characters. It's quite cool, but it's one of those, I suppose, dark comedies where it isn't laugh out loud funny, but it has a charm to it, and all the actors are doing quite a good job in this. Like Brittany Allen playing Julie, one of the sex workers. She is quite funny in this, I have to say. It's not uber gory, but it definitely falls into that line of accessible horror, because likable characters, quite amusing in places. It's not gratuitously violent, but on some of the attacks you will sort of wince because it is quite vicious. And it does get quite tense, actually. I will have to say that the last half an hour, it does get quite nerve-wracking, especially because one of the family members gets attacked and it does not look good, for them. Like you don't see the attack, but the aftermath does not look good. I had a pretty good time watching this, actually. It's one of those, I think I did buy it. I think it was buy it for £5 or rent it for £4.50, so I just bought it. It's one of those like streaming purchases that I kind of went into thinking I need something new to watch. I have heard about this. We've talked about it briefly on the news before, and we like Justin Long. It's worth it. It's worth it. I think it's definitely a solid 7 out of 10 film. There's nothing really to dislike about it. It's not amazing. It's a comedy horror that isn't super funny, but isn't also super horrifying or tense or scary. But it's a nice watch. And you don't need to worry about like the dogs getting hurt, the coyotes getting hurt, because they look quite vicious. So it's not like they're fluffy dogs getting hurt. It's they're pretty nasty. So 7 out of 10 for Coyotes. And then finally, I went to the cinema last night to see, and I haven't got very good artwork there, 28 years later, The Bone Temple. So we're not going to go into spoilers for the film. We don't try to avoid spoilers when we do the review. But if you haven't seen 28 years later, this does follow on pretty swiftly after it. So if you haven't seen 28 years later and you don't want the end of that to be spoiled, I would probably stop listening now. Thanks, bye. Like, share, follow, subscribe, all that good stuff. But if you want to continue, let's continue. So it's a 2026 post-apocalyptic horror drama directed by Nia DaCosta and written by Alex Garland. It was shot back-to-back with its predecessor 28 years later and serves as the fourth installment overall in the 28 Days Later film series. Stars Ralph Fiennes, Jack O'Connell, Alfie Williams, Erin Kellyman, and Chi Lewis Parry. Okay, so after being rescued by the Fingers Gang, led by the charismatic Sir Lord Jimmy Crystal, Spike is initiated into the group after he kills Jimmy Shite in a forced death match. Sir Jimmy renames Spike Jimmy, following his notion of all fingers having variations of the name, including the more empathetic Jimmy Inc. and sadistic Jemima. Dr. Ian Kelson continues to maintain the Bone Temple as an ossuary for those killed after the outbreak, while Samson, the Alpha infected, repeatedly visits the temple. Samson, when we're introduced to him to this, finds a chap who's being chased by the infected, and Samson, oh my god, like in the previous film he rips people's heads off and pulls out their spinal columns. In this he does that as well, but his hand mushes through the guy's face. Like, it's not just a case of grab the jaw, pull the head up, or grab the head, pull the head up. It's like smushing in through the eyes, through the, oh god, it is uber violent. And that's what I have to say, like, similar to 28 Years Later, it's not continuous gratuitous violence. It's a lot of character development and discussion and moments of quiet contemplation at times. But when it is violent, holy shit, it is tough to watch in places. The focus here isn't so much on the infected. It's kind of the relationship between Samson and Kelson. I won't say too much there, but it is a very interesting progression of their lore of the infection. One of the things with zombie-esque films you can have is where, oh, the infection has happened, people are infected, they die and come back to life, and, or, you know, if it's typical zombies, and then we're focusing on the different people, and they're going from one location to another, or we've got a different group of people, blah 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 blah. But I guess with something like A Day of the Dead, that's sort of showed that there was an evolution to the infection, and we kind of got that with the introduction of the alphas and 28 Years Later. Here, though, we got more of an understanding of what the infected see, and if the infected can be under an influence and how that changes their behavior. So that was all very, very interesting, the work of Dr. Kelson. We also get to understand a lot of Dr. Kelson's music habits. So he has his little underground area that he lives in, but he also has a stereo. And that leads into a really cool needle drop moment later in the film. Very, 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 very cool. Really great performance. Ralph Fiennes is excellent in this. Alfie Williams is, again, brilliant. He was great in 28 Years Later. In this one, you just, oh god, you just feel sorry for him. You just want him to be able to escape and get somewhere to salvation. The question is raised, like, could he not at any point try and go back home, the home that he had in 28 Years Later? Because that wasn't a bad home. Like, yeah, his dad was a bit of a shite, you know, from his actions, but not like he wasn't like a mean person, just you know. But the situation he finds himself in with the Jimmies, the ability to run away isn't really there. They are uber violent. That does bring me on to the Jimmies. I mean, Jack O'Connell, just, he is incredible in any role really that he has, but he's especially good at being despicable villains. You know, Merrick, I think his name is, in or Remick in Sinners, of course, Eden Lake. But here is Sir Jimmy Crystal. It's an interesting development of the character because he believes that old Nick, his dad, Satan, talks to him and him alone and wants charity. And charity is essentially forms of torture. And those scenes are tough. But they build up tension excellently. This is shot brilliantly. And I enjoyed 28 Years Later. It's a divisive film. Some people I know really enjoyed it. Some people hated it. Some people just don't really know what they thought about it. And, you know, one of the issues they had is, who's really the central antagonist here? And I thought 28 Years Later is more of a character piece as opposed to a here's our goodie, here's our baddie. But here we do definitely have an antagonist, and it's one hell of a performance. I think I will have to say that I prefer this to 28 Years Later. I can't remember what I gave 28 Years Later, but I think I want to give 28 Years Later The Bone Temple 8.75 out of 10. I don't think it's quite a 9. I might need to give it a rewatch. There isn't anything that I disliked about it, but it didn't blow me away like other 9 out of 10 films have done for me. But it was a great ride. Again, music was great, performances were excellent, it's shot brilliantly, and it's got some really cool moments in it, and it's got some really disgusting moments in it. So 28 years later, The Bone Temple, 8.75 out of 10. Right, Ghouls and Fiends, that brings us to the end of another edition of the Ministry of Horror. If you like what I do on the channel, please be sure to give us a follow, subscribe, whatever it is on your platform of choice. YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music. We have the Patreon where we have additional content over there. So if you want to support the channel, no pressure, but you can go to patreon.com/Ministry of Horror. This is the moment we have to give a shout out to Gruff and, of course, James and Bericles. Thank you very much, guys, for your continued support of the channel. Bonus content has gone up there recently. The most recent one was a horror comfort films, where I talked about some of my horror comfort films and why they are a comfort film. So that brings us to the end. Thank you very much. I'll catch you again next time. Goodbye.